Li Keqiang delivers his last work report as premier at today's NPC meeting in Beijing. Li sets a target GDP growth of about 5% for the country this year. And he stresses the need to maintain one country, two systems for Hong Kong and Macau. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The first session of the 14th National People's Congress opened in Beijing today. Outgoing Premier Li Keqiang delivered his final work report to the national legislature. He said despite challenges including the COVID-19 pandemic, the government has still completed many economic missions. He also announced a target GDP growth of around 5% for the country in the current year. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The first session of the 14th National People's Congress opened in Beijing's Great Hall of the People this morning, as President Xi Jinping and other state leaders gathered on the podium. In his last work report to the NPC, Premier Li Keqiang stressed that China's economic development is entering a new stage and has maintained stability.
Our consumer demand, market distribution, industrial production, business expectation have all markedly improved, and our economy is staging a steady recovery on demonstrating vast potential and momentum for further growth.
For a country with over 1.4 billion people has kept employment stable, and such stability is a source of tremendous creativity.
Li said despite the economic damage due to the COVID pandemic, the country's gross domestic product increased to 121 trillion RMB, with an average annual growth rate of 5.2% over the past 5 years. The Premier's work report also detailed several developmental goals for the current year. They include a target GDP growth of around 5%, the creation of around 12 million new urban jobs, maintaining a surveyed urban unemployment rate of around 5.5%, and the growth in personal income that is in step with the nation's overall economic growth. The report added that food production must be stabilized and an emphasis must be made on rural revitalization. Li noted that improvements in agricultural technology are necessary to boost food production and prevent poverty in the countryside. Regarding the government's efforts in combating the coronavirus, the Premier said Beijing has secured a victory against the pandemic and will continue to increase the production of vaccines and antiviral drugs this year. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
On Hong Kong and Macau, Li Keqiang said there has been new progress as the central government has effectively exercised comprehensive jurisdiction over the special administrative regions. The Premier also stressed the need to maintain the one country, two systems principle and support the development of the two cities' economies. Mimo Sungai tells us more.
Premier Li Keqiang's report on Hong Kong and Macau appeared near the end of his speech.
We should fully, faithfully, and resolutely implement the policy of one country, two systems, under which the people of Hong Kong administer Hong Kong and Macau administer Macau, both with a high degree of autonomy. We should uphold the stipulated in Chinese constitution the basic law of the two regions, and that Hong Kong and Macau are administered by patriots. We should support Hong Kong and Macau in growing their economy and improve the lives of people and maintain long-term prosperity and stability of the two regions.
Looking back on his 5 years of work, Li said there have been new progress in the development of the two SARs, Hong Kong and Macau. He said the implementation of the Hong Kong National Security Law enabled the city to change from chaos to governance and from governance to prosperity. After Li delivered his report, President Xi Jinping shook hands with him before leaving the hall. When Xi saw Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee, who attended the NPC meeting for the first time as the city's top leader, Xi stopped and signed at Lee. Lee returned the compliment and bowed with hands folded in front. On his social media, John Lee said he was honored to attend the meeting, saying his administration will continue to uphold the policy of one country, two systems. Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan said the Premier's speech provided a direction for Hong Kong's development. Professor Lan Si-ip, a Hong Kong deputy to the National People's Progress, said the city should continue to improve in technology and innovation. And in Hong Kong, a youth group made arrangements for about 100 youngsters to watch the Premier's speech so as to help them understand the nation's affairs better. Mimosanai, TVB News.
Premier Li Keqiang also stressed the need to improve the nation's combat readiness and defense capabilities. On Taiwan, Li reiterated opposition to the island's independence while mentioning cross-strait cultural and economic cooperation. Jackie Lin with more.
This year, the country's defense budget is increased to about 1.55 trillion yuan. That marked a 7.2% rise in military spending from last year and is slightly outpacing last year's increase.
We should fully implement Xi Jinping thinking on strengthening military and military strategy for a new era. Our armed forces.
While marking an 8th consecutive year for an increase in defense spending, the amount is roughly only a quarter of the proposed military spending in the U.S. for the 2023 fiscal year. Looking forward, Li said the country should step up military training across the board and develop new strategic guidance. All these should be well coordinated to improve the nation's combat readiness. Li's work report also stressed China's devotion to an independent and peace-oriented diplomatic strategy to ensure world peace and regional stability. On the Taiwan issue, Li said, people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are one family.
We should promote the peaceful development of cross-strait relations and advance the process of China's peaceful reunification. As we Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are both one family and bound by blood, we should continue to encourage people on both sides of the strait to jointly promote the Chinese culture and advance China's rejuvenation.
While cross-strait tensions ran high over the past 5 years, especially when then U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited the island in August last year, Li did not mention the interference of foreign forces this time. Instead, he highlighted cross-strait cooperation on economic and cultural affairs. In response, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council said it wished Beijing could adopt a rational, fair, and mutually respectful attitude to pragmatically handle cross-strait affairs. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
In other news, an 84-year-old taxi driver was suspected to have lost control of his vehicle and hit pedestrians in Fortressville on Hong Kong Island this afternoon. Altogether, 5 people were injured. The incident was captured on video by a bystander. It happened at around 1 p.m. on Fortress Hill Road. The taxi hit 3 people before smashing into a lamppost. 2 of the injured, including a 59-year-old local woman and a 48-year-old woman of South Asian descent, remain unconscious tonight. The taxi driver and his passenger were also injured. Overseas, Iran has given assurances to the UN nuclear watchdog that it will finally assist a stalled investigation into uranium particles found at undeclared sites. Rafael Mariano Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, met with Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi and other top officials in Tehran on Saturday. Grossi's first visit to Iran in a year came days after the IAEA reported that uranium particles enriched up to nearly 84% were found in Iran's underground Fordo nuclear site. That enrichment is just short of weapons grade. According to the IAEA, Iran would also allow the reinstallation of extra monitoring equipment that had been put in place under the 2015 nuclear deal. The equipment was removed last year after the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the accord in 2018 under the Donald Trump administration. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has cast himself as the only Republican candidate who can build on his White House legacy. Speaking at the annual Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, on Saturday, he told a cheering crowd that he was engaged in his final battle as he tries to return to the Oval Office. This report from NBC News.
Donald Trump tonight grabbing the harness of the MAGA base.
I'm thrilled to be back at CPAC.
The type of Republican activist he's relying on to catapult him back into the White House.
We're going to see this battle through to ultimate victory. We're going to make America great again.
CPAC, the annual conservative gathering, a wild scene of Republican enthusiasts and a crowd overwhelmingly supportive of Trump's 2024 bid.
Donald Trump.
I'm a MAGA guy, through and through. There's nobody stopping him.
What are people coming to buy?
It's like 30-1 Trump over DeSantis.
An arena most other possible Republican contenders opted to avoid, except for Nikki Haley, the only major declared challenger to Trump.
If you're tired of losing, put your trust in a new generation.
Haley heckled by several on her way out. A straw poll taken at CPAC shows attendees favoring Trump over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by more than 40 points. DeSantis did not attend CPAC and is yet to announce a presidential run.
Why should he not be the presidential candidate for Republicans?
Well, he can be if he wants to be.
Why should the folks not turn to him if he makes the case of being a new generation of leader?
I think I've done something that nobody else has been able to do.
The conference here filled with Trump allies, including former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro made unsubstantiated claims of a stolen election in his home country, his supporters attacking the Capitol in January. He gave us his first on-camera interview with a U.S. TV outlet since losing his re-election bid.
Would you urge others around the world to resist the election denialism that we have seen play out in America and Brazil?
What we want is transparency, he said, and we want to respect the will of the people.
Meanwhile, self-help author Marianne Williamson is making a second bid for the White House, launching her campaign for the presidency on Saturday. Her 2020 bid for the presidency featured more calls for spiritual healing than actual voter support. She has become the first Democrat to formally challenge President Joe Biden for the 2024 nomination. Tracy Furness has more.
I, as of today, am a candidate for the office of President of the United States.
The 70-year-old one-time spiritual advisor to Oprah Winfrey will almost certainly provide only token primary opposition for President Biden, a testament to how strongly national Democrats are united behind the current president. She didn't mention Biden in her speech, but noted that Trump not being re-elected in 2020 kept the country from going over the cliff. Williamson did address the country's challenges.
And we know that this country is plagued by many challenges now, not the least of which is hatred and division, which is greater than any of us have experienced in our national life. And it is our job to create a vision of justice and love that is so powerful that it will override the forces of hatred and injustice and fear.
Williamson said she was opposing a free market mindset and corrupt political system that she said prioritized greed above all else, like an atomizer spray of economic injustice, pointing out that there has been a massive transfer of wealth over the past 50 years that has disseminated America's middle class. Born in Texas, Williamson now lives in Beverly Hills, California. She has authored more than a dozen books and ran an unsuccessful independent congressional campaign in California in 2014. She's best known for wanting to create a Department of Peace in 2020, asking the federal government to pay reparations to Black Americans as atonement for centuries of slavery and discrimination. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
And back at home as Hong Kong returns to normalcy, its biggest international outdoor music and arts festival has made a comeback to the Central Harbourfront after 4 years. Cloak and Flap 2023 has attracted overseas tourists as well, including 90 staff members of a Singapore company. Sakura Ip was at the festival.
Hands up. Shake it up. The Central Harbourfront was packed with people this weekend.
Without masks, some dressed up with boat makeup for the long-missed festival. Selfie was a must to record moments of this iconic 3-day entertainment event, which finally returned after 4 years. It's one of the first mega events in Hong Kong after most of the city's COVID restrictions were lifted. The event attracted overseas tourists too, including a Singapore company which brought 90 employees to Hong Kong for 4 days as an incentive trip. The Hong Kong Tourism Board has arranged them to visit various attractions such as Amplice Museum.
I'm super excited for this trip because this is actually my first time in Hong Kong and I'm loving it. Yeah, no doubt that I will come back definitely.
I will rate it 5 out of 5 for my own. Hong Kong hotels are very limited in that if you need 90 rooms, it is very difficult. So we got one in time. I thought it was a miracle.
Local citizens came out to enjoy the festival as well. Ms. Chan said she could see people were enjoying the event and she enjoyed the performance lineup. Mr. Sham wants more events that would give the city a vibrant vibe.
After 3 years, we can finally take off our masks, grab a drink with friends and enjoy the music in this mega event. Cheers! This
music festival is one of the mega events highlighted by the Hello Hong Kong campaign. The Tourism Board will also hold several more events to promote the city later this year, such as Wine and Dine Festival, the International Dragon Boat Invitation Race and the Hong Kong Cyclone. Sakura Ip, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.